Welcome, Tahira and David, 12 cubed, great conversations about Valuegraphics and the magic that they bring. Let's go.
Let's do it.
All right. So, David, we have had some amazing conversations so far, and we're getting close to the end and talking about Valuegraphics and how it fits into the world and customer journey. I think this is something, whether we are a big brand or whether an association or we have a shopping mall or creating a wonderful event, everybody has a customer journey. So let's talk about the different touch points that happen through a customer journey as they relate to values.
Right. I think one of the interesting things about understanding the values of the audience that you're doing anything for is that it's applicable regardless of what the decision is. When I speak, we always pull custom data for the audiences that I'm talking to so that they're able to walk out of there and use those pieces of information, those data points in their own personal lives. But then we'll do a masterclass sometimes. And in the masterclass, we get into what we call values thinking, which is a process of using those values to make every decision. Because we don't know what an audience of people might need to decide tomorrow or a year from now, and these values will be applicable. So teaching them to use them, regardless of what the question is important. And one of the things we do is we talk about all the different kinds of points that you might find on a customer journey. There's the obvious places where knowing what people care about are important. People always tend to think about it in terms of marketing and public relations. Like, what's the message I should be using to influence and engage the audience that I'm trying to speak to? But right down to simple things like catering is one of my favorite ones. So if you know that creativity, let's go back to creativity. Creativity and personal growth are two of the values that are highly ranked by the audience that you're serving. And the decision on the table is, what do we order for lunch? How can you decide what lunch might be that's going to meet those values of creativity and personal growth? Well, I would say one idea, remember we're back to the sociological imagination here, there's no correct answer, but let's riff on this for a moment. One idea might be to let people, to put together an assembly of different kinds of ingredients that they've never seen before, and they're not quite sure where it's going, and then let them see if they can figure out how to creatively combine these things and make something that they want to have for their meal.
It's like chopped, but not.
Right. So instead of, it's a normal thing to say it's a make your own pizza or it's a make your own sandwich, make your own salad. Cool. But what if the ingredients were all stuff that you don't
didn't
know
make
how
any
they
sense?
Each other?
Yes.
And then you had to go, well, I don't know if I took this and I took that, and so you'd be learning something about your own way of processing food. You'd be talking to other people about their perspective on things. You'd be working together to try and solve a problem. You'd get to be creative. It's just lunch, but you've met a couple of values that are very important to this particular audience.
And you created an experience, which we love in a journey.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So every single time that anybody has any interaction with you during the course of their customer journey, from the very first email they might receive, the very first ad, the very first public relations piece that they might run across, the very first message, to the first interaction point, to the point of sale, the purchase point, to the post-customer satisfaction point, all of those different points along that.
Is this about having an authentic tone of voice?
Authentically what, though? I mean, we were back there.
Yeah.
But the point is, there isn't a single decision that you can make that shouldn't be about what the people who you're trying to do this for actually care about. Because when you think about a decision around anything, even as simple as what you're going to order for lunch, there's a whole bunch of possible solutions. There's easy ones, there's more complex ones. You have to use some system to make a call. So let's say we didn't know values. We're just going to sit around and say, what are we going to order for lunch? Well, we could have sandwiches, we could have pizza, we could order sushi, we could have a sit-down meal. We could, here's the list of 10 possible things we can do. You got to sort them out somehow. You got to say this one, not that one. And you use some mental process. It's about cost, it's about convenience, it's about cleanup, it's about resources available, all those other sorts of things. why not use what people care about as just that sortation mechanism to make every single
So is there my vegan will not take anything in styrofoam who's part of my team, and is there, the dietary need who is training to look better at 55 than 50, who cannot eat any carbs, and because they believe in health and wellness for themselves, and that's their trigger, and it becomes all of those different.
And then you think about any given situation. I mean, what do we do when we're trying to solve problems generally? We lock ourselves in a boardroom and we start getting the giant sticky pads out and we start writing down ideas. And then we rank order those ideas based on some set of criteria. Say to each other what's important to us, what relates to our brand. That's a stupid idea. We're not getting aliens to come in on a spacecraft. We're not doing this. We're not doing... There's some way to make a decision based on all the ideas that you brainstorm. Why not start that brainstorming process knowing what your people care about and brainstorm around that, and then make your rank ordering decisions based on which of these things meet the most needs possible in terms of what people care about and what their values profile is.
And this goes back a lot to the work. So, we talked in an episode ages ago about, how I have a lot of letters. 3 of my letters are CED, Certified Event Designer, which is a relatively new program in that there's less than 200 people in the world who are certified event designers who have gone through the 3-day event design certification process, where it is about, you start with empathy mapping. But what if that empathy mapping, which, so we go through, what do they think, what do they hear, what do they feel, what do they see, what do they, what's our entry behavior, our exit behavior. But what if we were taking that empathy map and building it starting from values instead of starting it from essentially an imaginary persona, or what we perceive about our exhibitor, participant, sponsor, stakeholder role. So you get people together in a room who come from different departments, and you ask those questions and you try to get some alignment. But I think what we're trying to already get to is alignment around values. So what if we started from understanding some of those values, asking some of those questions before we step into that room to do our empathy mapping?
You got it. It's exactly the right answer.
Yeah.
Knowing your values as early as possible and then using those as a place to leap from and start asking yourselves the beautiful questions, the sociological imagination, all of these terms we've been using in the course of these episodes that we've been making. You still need to do the brainstorming. You still need to sit around and take your own experience, your expertise, your certifications, the things you've seen and thought about and experienced as a human being in the course of your life. You bring all of that to play, but you just know where to focus it. And you know what? In a really practical sense, here's one of the things that's great about knowing the values that you're trying to meet in advance. There's always that person in these brainstorming sessions who maybe carries a little more weight than someone else. It's the CEO, it's somebody who's actually got the checkbook and is paying for stuff. And they have some pet project, pet idea. I saw something when I was on vacation last summer and it was amazing and I want to do that. And because they're the ones with the biggest stick or the loudest voice, sometimes they end up winning those conversations.
There are many destinations chosen by the CEO's partner.
Right. So what if you were able to stand up and say, you know what, we could do that. That's an interesting idea. All due respect, though, we have data based on 500,000 surveys around the world that say that this is what the people we're trying to do this for actually care about, and that doesn't really fit as well as some of these other ideas. It just keeps everyone honest. The politics go away. The fighting goes away. The friction between a client organization and a supplier organization is gone because there isn't any, I'm standing up here defending my big idea. It's no, these are some ideas that are based on this data. If you would like to revisit some of the ways we've been interpreting this data, that's fair. But your crazy idea about this kooky thing that your wife wants to do, it just doesn't fit. If you want to make a really subjective and horrible decision, then of course we can do what you'd like to do, Mr. Client. But if you'd like to actually do something that's going to work for the people that you're trying to do this for, then we should stick to what the data says.
Well, and I think, let's just go back to that data. It's one of the things that we talk about endlessly is data, metrics. How do we collect it? How do we analyze it? Where does it come from? Is it, what's the validity of it? And, that's so important, and I think that we also don't do always a stupendous job in the event industry of asking those. We don't ask beautiful questions. We ask on a scale of 1 to 5, did you like the speaker? What does "let" even mean?
And what are you going to do with that?
Right. So
once you've collected that,
yes, David seemed very friendly.
We won't book that speaker again. Well, you probably weren't going to anyway because you already had that speaker. So who cares whether that was a good speaker or not, right? That's my issue with so much of the data collection that's gone on in the corporate world in the last little while. It's like we've been on a data feeding frenzy, and we've built these giant mountains of data that we have, and we're now, I think, starting to sit back and go, what are we supposed to do with this? Pulling useful insights out of that data. I mean, the mother of all instances of this is demographics. Who cares how old your target audience is? If you can show me how understanding that your target audience is made up primarily of people who are between the ages of 40 and 50 becomes an actionable insight, what are you going to do with that? Cool, good to know. Yeah. But if you can't, if it's like, I don't know what to do with that, then why ask? Why just clutter up your brains and your computers and your hard drives with all this useless data? Yeah. One of my favorite examples of this is people who buy into, and there's going to be people who are listening to this who don't like it because this is what we do. But geo-targeting services is an example. So I can track your customers, and as soon as they walk by your store, we can send them a coupon on their phone, and then they will know that they're going to be able to get 30% off if they come into your store. Okay, it sounds interesting. I can see where that might be an appealing thought. But let's just take that back into an analog.
First, let's take out the creepy factor.
There's a creepy factor, sure. But even if you aren't creeped out by it, if you take it back to an analog situation and say, what would that be like before we were capable of doing that? This would be like you walk by a store and someone leaps out and waves a coupon in your face. Are you going to respond to that? Of course you aren't. So why would it be any different if it pops up on your phone? You're not going to suddenly go, oh, I think I need barrettes and scrunchies. Like I'm going in there. It's just not going to be the way you proceed. So data collection for the sake of data collection is a waste of time and money. Only collect data that's going to actually turn into useful information and insights that you can act on that'll make you better at whatever it is you're trying to do. And, behaviors, emotions, feelings, decisions, they're all rooted in your values. If you're not collecting data through my systems or some systems of your own around what people care about, what are you doing?
That is, actually, we're going to end there. That is a great way to end because I think that is the perfect way to start is collect the right data.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.